What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here with your Packers Daily Chat at Cheesehead TV here on YouTube. Shout out to everyone for joining me already on the chat, already in progress. Always good to see people arriving early. The Packers dropping a heartbreaker there in Minnesota last night, 24-17, all but putting a fork in the Packers' 2018 season. Yes, there is still an outside chance for the playoffs, but the Packers would need to win out and get a whole boatload of help. I don't see either of those things playing out. Depends on which source you're looking at. I know NBC put up a graphic last night that by that loss, the Packers have a 3% chance of winning. You go other places on the internet, I think ESPN has them at 13%. Football Outsiders says 14%, which is probably the most optimistic version. Whichever way you slice it, the Packers are in dire straits when it comes to the 2018 season. Yes, their schedule is favorable going forward. They still have a incredibly tough game down in Chicago in a couple weeks. That would probably be all they would need the season to officially end mathematically. But as long as there's a sliver of hope, the Packers will be focused and trying to win ball games. And we'll be here chatting with you fine folks, such as Matt Pearson says, apply all angry emojis on this chat. The season is, yeah, exactly. Blow it up. That's what I said last night. It's what I titled this chat today. I've seen all I need to see. It's pretty clear when you tie, I haven't broken it yet, but when you tie a record of futility, such as we saw from Bart Starr in 1979, starting 0-6 on the road, Mike McCarthy is in some dubious company there when it comes to coaching these Green Bay Packers. Now, it's not all on McCarthy, of course. A lot of it is on Rodgers as well. His inability to connect with his receivers in a even timely manner down the field. He's been off on a number of throws, not even just down the field, but simple out patterns to EQ the last 2 weeks on critical third downs late in games, being thrown into the ground. Whatever Mike and Aaron were going to do in the NFL, pretty clear that they've done it. And having just paid Aaron Rodgers, he's not going anywhere. So you know who's up and who should be getting the axe at the end of the season. Now, McCarthy still has a year left on his deal, and Mark Murphy could very well bring him back, maybe even extend him. That's a possibility. Not going to say it isn't. If I were running the team, and I think anyone who's followed me for any number of years or seasons here at Cheesehead TV, following these Packers, I have been a staunch defender of McCarthy at times. I have very much said you have to let it play out. At this point, it's played out. It's whatever was supposed to work between McCarthy and Rodgers this year has not worked for whatever reason. And bringing the two back next year doesn't make a whole lot of sense. A lot of football left, Nagler. Stretch, yeah, a lot of meaningless football. A lot of chances for young guys to shine and a chance for Aaron Rodgers to put up some lovely numbers against some questionable defenses. I'm sure that's how it'll be sold. They'll go on a mini run here because of their soft schedule and playing at home. People will get all excited. It's great. I'm happy. It's always fun to watch the Packers win in December. I'm all for it. But let's be real. This team isn't going anywhere. Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers are broken. And the only thing that's going to get Rodgers back on track is a new voice. We've seen what we need to see. Their inability to even correct the simplest of things, banging their head against the wall over and over again, week after week, is just too tough to watch at this point. Bring back Dom Capers. All right, let's not get crazy. Cobb goes on IR this week. Matt, I doubt it. If they were going to do it, they probably would have done it by now. I tend to think they'll bring him back once his hamstring is fully healed. But we'll see. Maybe they do make that move and want to feature some young guys. We bring Kumaro up, etc. But we'll see. I think Wednesday will be telling. Did the ball get stuck to Rodgers' hand throwing to EQ again? I don't know. He didn't grab the laces, and he just threw it into the dirt. What position do you think is a top priority in the draft and free agency? Julian, I would say, good football players are number one. That's what you don't want to box yourself in by position. I think the front seven definitely needs help. Obviously, the edge is probably where you're looking first and foremost, but I wouldn't say you're going to have to do it do or die in the first round, etc., or first wave of free agency. Player acquisition can happen over a lengthy period of time. But to me, yes, you have to give a little bit of juice to that outside pass rush. Do I think, Ryan, good question. Do I think the Packers should prioritize signing a veteran wide receiver this offseason? It really depends on who's coaching the team. If they're going to continue with Mike McCarthy as the head coach, probably not, just because this entire system, if you've got those young guys who've got a good year now under the belt, whether it is EQ, MVS, even Jamal Moore, let him go away for an offseason, come back, see what he can give you, Kumaro for a year. I don't think they need to go out and get a veteran guy. Now, if they bring in a new coach and a new offensive system, it probably wouldn't be the world's worst thing to get a vet and or somebody who's played in whatever system they're bringing in. But again, that's to be determined. Does Pettine stay, though, through the potential McCarthy firing? Really like what he has done this season. Eric, if McCarthy were to be fired, you have to think whoever they brought in to be the head coach would have the option to retain him. I don't know what his contract terms are. Those are always on lockdown. But you would have to think that they would have the opportunity to. Now, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. It's really going to be up to whoever that head coach might be. We did see that play out last offseason with Matt Nagy in Chicago. The Bears specifically held on to Vic Fangio because they wanted, A, to keep him around because he's a really good coach, but B, they wanted the new head coach to have the ability to keep him if they wanted to. Obviously, Nagy made that choice, and it's paid off big time for the Bears. That's, I don't want to say really unusual, but it is unusual for a new head coach in the NFL to keep over a held over staff. Usually they'll let those guys go. But you look at the work Pettine has done this year, I don't think it'd be the craziest idea for a new head coach to keep him around. It will depend on the coach, and it will depend on, if Mike McCarthy gets fired. Packers will handle this with grace, wouldn't one think, end of the season, amicably? Absolutely. If Mike McCarthy is let go, it will happen at the end of the year. It won't happen after a game, and it will happen, with some kind of flowery release, thanking Mike for all of his contributions to Green Bay, the Packers, bringing a Super Bowl, etc. I don't doubt that for a second. Do we overestimate the talent level of this team? I guess, Bob, it all depends on who you're talking to. I think there's talent. I don't think it's comparable to maybe some of the best teams in the league. In the past, Aaron Rodgers has been able to paper over a lot of that. The thing that really hurt this team this year, from my vantage point anyway, is the lack of contributions and or production from a great chunk of the salary cap. If you look at the big ticket guys on this team, guys taking up the greatest portion of the cap, you've got very little production and return on their investment from those guys, whether it is Aaron Rodgers or Randall Cobb or Mike Daniels, Clay Matthews, those are your high-priced guys taking up a good large portion of your salary cap where you got very little from. Now, obviously, Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback. You got something from him. But, some of that is empty production. Some of that is needs context put around it. I think funny enough, the two guys who really kind of had decent ROIs this season are Devontae Adams and Corey Linsley. The two guys they signed at the end of last year, kind of Ted Thompson's parting gifts. I think those were the last two moves that Thompson made. Both of them were really smart, and Linsley and Adams have both balled out this year. So, those two guys notwithstanding, they just have not gotten great contributions from those guys. And I think that's really hurt them. Do you think Rodgers will be willing to listen to a coach his own age if we hired Lincoln Riley? I don't think they're going to go the college route. I know Lincoln Riley has been a hot name for months now, and not just in Green Bay, but for any potential head coaching job in the NFL. Maybe he ends up getting a job in the NFL, maybe not, but I would be absolutely shocked if it's in Green Bay. I don't see Mark Murphy going that direction. Is Jair Alexander the next shutdown corner? I don't know about shutdown corner. I think that's kind of a overused phrase in the NFL, but I think he's the next really good corner. I'll give him that, no doubt about it. Should we tank so we get picks? No. No. There are too many guys involved, too many People with professional pride out there, they go out to win the football game, and they're going to do it to the best of their ability. Each and every man out there is paid to do a job, and they're going to do it. Did you see that screenplay that Jair Alexander blew up? Nathaniel, it was tough to miss. That was flippin' fantastic. He literally threw his guy into the receiver. I mean, that was just an awesome play. Remember all those the smoke screens last year that absolutely decimated the Packers down after down, game after game? Yeah, Jair Alexander said enough of that in one play. In one play, he showed more guts and moxie than anything we saw on the field last season. That was an outstanding football play. MVS with one catch last night. What gives? Really missing Cobb and Allison. Absolutely, David. I think Cobb and Allison being down for such extended periods of time are really what's hurt Rodgers and the offense more than anything else. And, has Rodgers been off? Absolutely. But you cannot deny the chemistry he had with those two guys and the work in progress chemistry he's had with MVS and EQ. I think the lack of production for MVS last night was, Rodgers was just going other places. It happens from time to time in this offense. He did go to MVS a couple times. That first time he was blanketed in coverage. Rodgers is just going to go where he finds the open guy. And for whatever reason, it's very rare that they're going to work up let's scheme MVS open, or let's focus on getting MVS touches. That's just not how they're going to operate. Let's head over to Twitter and see what's on the minds of the old people in the tweet machine. Starting with Brian, who says, Aaron, two things Pettine actually did all right with what he had left to work with. I very much agree there. McCarthy, though, tries to run the same plays with Bakhtiari out and Spriggs replacing him. That's bad coaching, right? Well, Brian, it's definitely stubborn coaching. It's definitely something you point to. It is just who he is. It's who he's always been. He's won a lot of games in the NFL with that philosophy. The idea that whoever is up has got to step in there and be able to produce and work on an island, regardless of situation and or environment. I'm with you, though. It drives me mad when he is like that. And McCarthy has been one of the most stubborn coaches I've ever seen in the NFL. So, yeah, I mean, you can call it bad coaching, you can call it being stubborn, what have you, but McCarthy's not going to change his entire offense around just because one guy is out. It's always been that way. What else we got here? So much to talk about. With the season all but over, who are the names to watch in the search for the next head coach? Is the best case scenario retaining Pettine and hiring a head coach to mold a productive offense? I think they will most likely look on the offensive side of the ball, or they'll lean that way. That's what they've done traditionally over the years, although Mark Murphy did kind of shake things up last offseason and take them in a new direction front office-wise, so perhaps he breaks the offensive head coach mold and goes on the defensive side. I'd love him to go look at Zach Taylor out in L.A., the QB coach. I know Sean McVay has set the world on fire, gets a lot of the credit there. I think a young offensive mind who's learned in that system and has been instrumental in the success of Jared Goff would be an interesting hire. I know it's not all on McCarthy, but with how bad the Pack have been on third down, special teams, fourth down calls, is it possible that the team hasn't quit on McCarthy, but rather McCarthy has quit on the team? I will never believe that Mike McCarthy has quit, ever, ever. I think the man is too principled. He's too diligent. I think you definitely have seen a guy who hasn't changed very much, hasn't evolved a whole lot. He's kept his head down and done what he always does, not get too high, not get too low. That's who he's always been. It has served him well for much of his career. But to suggest that he's quit, I don't buy that. If you're going to go for it on fourth and short, why not spread the defense out wide? When you pack everyone in tight, there's less room to operate, and it tells everyone watching that you are running the ball. It's just stupid. I kind of have to agree, Brian. I mean, anybody who watched the watch party last night knows how upset I was at that call, especially after having to take a timeout to get to it. McCarthy indicated after the game and reiterated today that there were two calls, and in hindsight, he wishes they had the other call on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But look, you're running Aaron Jones into the teeth of the Vikings defense when, as you state here, they know it's coming, basically. Everyone in the stadium knew what was coming. That's not who the Packers are. They never have been. They're not a road grading team. And I know Mike wants to pull a lineman or he'll create a seam and let Jones get through there, etc. And it has worked on occasion. But in that building, in that environment, against that defense, against that defensive line, I thought it was absolute folly to call that play. You need inches. Just sneak your quarterback. I don't know. It's maddening. Just maddening. What's up with number 12 constantly throwing the ball at EQ's feet? Your guess is as good as mine. I wish I knew. I truly did. It's happened 2 weeks in a row, both times on third down, both times in crunch time. Rodgers just throwing really, really bad passes in those instances. Your former workmate, Bob McGinn, wrote an article Sunday pretty critical of Aaron Rodgers and others who defend him. Do you agree with his assessment? I agree with him. Matthew, I thought, as usual with Bob since he left the paper, he was in need of an editor. I thought he meandered a bit in the column. I thought he was unfair at times, but overall, I agree with his thrust, and I agree with his assessment that he put forth in the opening, in his lead, that the idea that they've been wasting Aaron Rodgers and Rodgers has absolutely no part to play in it is nonsense. Now, you can rank who's to blame, etc. I don't care about the blame game, but the idea that Rodgers is untouchable when it comes to, oh, they're wasting him, that's ridiculous. He is absolutely part of the gig and part of the issue. He needs a new voice. He needs someone to break him down and build him back up, much like Favre did towards the end of his career. Entered Mike McCarthy then, enters who now? I don't know. We'll find out. All right, back to the live chat. See what's going on. EQ has nice feet, perhaps. Perhaps that's it. This team would have a much better record with Jordy Nelson out there. Rodgers can't function anymore without a safety net receiver. Well, I mean, you could also say that he would function a lot better if Randall Cobb was healthy. Somebody he trusts. Hell, I think they'd be better off if Geronimo Allison were out there. He was very comfortable throwing to Allison. I mean, I think last night was the first time in weeks that we've seen him throw something deep downfield before a receiver had actually gotten out of a break. You saw that in the play where he ran up in the pocket and fired at EQ 20 yards downfield before EQ had even turned around. And that's a rare thing these days for Aaron. At the end of the day, it's like anything. Thanks, Brett. How much have bad drafts hurt us the past few years? Felipe, there's no doubt about it. They have certainly hurt. I think it's a combination of the bad drafts and then the questionable decision-making, reportedly by Russ Ball, to let players like Micah Hyde and Julius Peppers walk out the door for monetary reasons. Jared Cook as well. These are all decisions that have come back to haunt the Packers, and you've seen it. Because, look, it's great that you go and get high-priced free agents like Jimmy Graham, but when it's very apparent that he and the quarterback are having trouble getting on the same page 11, 12 weeks into the season, well, maybe you should have kept Jared Cook around. There's something to be said for continuity. Let a guy actually play with their quarterback for a few years rather than churning through these veterans every season. Or, heaven forbid, draft a tight end. Anyway, I'm on a tangent. Kevin King's injuries are really hurting our defense and putting pressure on our rookies. Very much agree, Ryan. The thing is you really like this defense when King is out there. He and Alexander form a nice duo. But you're right. You can't count on him, and he continually finds himself on the sideline. And that's very much putting the Packers in a bad spot defensively. So Packers need new guards? Yeah, I mean, they're not going to go and replace Lane Taylor anytime soon, having just signed him to an extension last year, but right guard is wide open. That definitely needs an upgrade. Josh Jackson move to safety next year? I think it's a possibility. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion by any means, but I think they'll look at it. Again, who's the coaching staff? What's the system they're running? These are questions that we don't have answers to at the moment. I think this team will be much more competitive next season. Hi from Buenos Aires. What's up, Walt? I tend to agree. I mean, obviously, things change mightily one season to the next. Off seasons do lots of lots of comings and goings and lots of ups and downs. But if you look at what Gutekunst has on offer when it comes to draft capital, coupled with what should be ample cap space, I'm very excited to see how he retools the roster. McCarthy ran out of creativity in the first 15 minutes. Nathaniel, I think he ran out of ideas after the second touchdown, no doubt about it. He talks about not scripting the first 15 plays. He has the initial thoughts for normal down and distance, initial third down looks, et cetera, and that's great. But then once those are spent, he's out of bullets. And you saw last night, Mike Zimmer Rodgers mentioned it after the game, a predominantly cover 2 look. They had no answer. I mean, that's why they tried to hit Jimmy Graham up the seam to no avail, because Graham dropped it. But look, it's hard to say that you're watching anything other than a guy who is out of ideas once the script is over, basically. And he's got somebody who's on the other sideline making adjustments, and he's unable to counter. Can we just make it a 30-minute game? Maybe. Now I know why Josh Jones wasn't playing. I don't know, Jeffrey. I saw him, he overran a few plays, he had a few missed tackles, but for the most part, I thought he held up okay. He certainly wasn't, the reason they lost that game. Not that that's the benchmark or anything, but he's a young guy. Hasn't played a lot this year, clearly. But yeah, I mean, and when people were clamoring for him, you kind of figured that, the reason he hasn't played a whole lot is because he's got a lot of work to do, but nothing better than live reps. And looking at that tape, that's the only way you're going to get better in this league. So hopefully he takes all this extensive experience he's about to get and puts it to good use over the offseason. We're set up nicely to rebuild next year, no? Yes, Bob. Yes, they are. Stop calling deep routes on 3rd and short. All caps. Couldn't agree more. Haha showed on Thanksgiving why we are better off without him. Tend to agree. I mean, it's not surprising. I don't think we saw anything different than we've seen from AHA the last 2 years. The Day Banky says he thinks the J.K. Scott pick was good. Oh, I missed it. Wait, what did you say? You guys are too much chat. The Day Banky says he thinks the J.K. Scott pick was good is the day we start winning. Oh, sicko. I don't think the Packers are going to win anytime soon then. John. Good Susan. Hey, man, props to Susan for coming to the watch party last night. She was a Vikings fan. She was loud and proud about it. Hey, props to her. That took guts. I didn't. She's typing into a computer. But I thought it was funny. Worst fan base in the NFL in your experience? I don't know, man. They're all awful. Even the Packers. Clay gone next year? Anthony, I have to think so. I mean, you look at third contracts in Green Bay. It's a rare thing. I think if they wanted to, they probably would have extended him by now. I tend to think they'll let him walk. Mike McCarthy won't be out of work for long, Bob. I tend to agree. Bring Edgar Bennett back and keep Pettin. Yeah, I don't think Bennett's coming back. If Kyle Shanahan gets fired, do you think we could get him? If he did get fired, yeah, I think they could, but I don't think he's getting fired. Is Fackrell fool's gold? Good question, Nightman. I don't think he's fool's gold. I think he has improved, and I think he's playing much better than he had. Than he had been. That obviously is a low bar, but I wouldn't call it fool's gold. I don't think he's a superstar in the making or anything, but you like what you see. Continued development. That's what you want. Is Jason Spriggs the new Kyler Fackrell? All right. Hold down. Slow down. Travis, the Bears still suck. Travis, yes, they do. They could go all the way to the Super Bowl and win it this year, and they still would suck because they're the Bears. All right, everybody, I'm going to have to go. Thank you so much for all the questions. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to yours. There are a ton of them. Thanks for checking in on Twitter, on the live chat, here on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, tell your friends, go on Facebook, share it. If you're on Patreon, and you like what we do here at Cheesehead TV, hit that Patreon button. Give us a little something, something. Help support what we do at Cheesehead TV. We are devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good night.